Part of me has wanted to talk about this, and part of me has thought I probably shouldn't. It's not my movement to co-opt, it's not my movement to make videos on. What the world really doesn't need right now is another straight white male voice on this. But if I don't talk about it and use the platforms that we've been given to talk about this, then I can't move on. And I can't in good conscience make videos and ignore what's been happening. And for those of you who understand the importance of flags and the various different political / non-political movements that are involved in flags, this one behind me should be giving you a damn good guess as to what I'm about to start talking about, and that is the BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement that is going on, and the protests and the riots that are happening in the States, and the protests and riots that are happening around the world. And I am going to come straight out and say this. I am good with all of the protests, I am good with all of the riots, and I am good with all of the looting. It really is a shame that these buildings are being destroyed and this property is being stolen. However, black people, specifically black men and women, people of colour, are being murdered by the people who are supposed to be protecting them. And until that is addressed, until these people's voices are heard and everybody with a conscience is heard, then a bit of property damage and a little bit of theft isn't the biggest problem we've got. No happy populace has ever rioted. No well looked after populace has ever rioted. The only way that riots happen is when a sufficiently sized group of people who all feel the same way have been marginalised and in this case murdered by the people who are supposed to be protecting them. Then of course this sort of thing is going to happen. Happy populations do not resort to violence. And the flag behind me, I consider myself somewhat of an anarchist. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. I'm not going to pretend that I think that, you know, violence sometimes is necessary. Because it is. Because sometimes it's the only language violent people can understand. These protesters and rioters are not doing this out of nowhere. They are well within their rights to be doing this because they're being killed in massive numbers by the state for no reason whatsoever. And a lot of people on the centrist and the right side of politics recently have been saying, oh, you should try non-violent protests. They tried it your way for months and months and months. All the right-leaning media, all the centrist media could have talked about in the States was the fact that football players were taking a knee during the national anthem. They were showing that they were being marginalised and they were being killed by police forces months ago. And they tried peaceful protests and it clearly didn't work. And the reason it didn't work is because violence was used against them and they tried to be peaceful and they were being portrayed as the bad people as opposed to the ones who were murdering them. And I'm using the phrase murdered very deliberately because the police officers that sparked this whole thing by murdering yet another black man, and what crime had he supposedly committed? Handing off a fraudulent $20 bill. So apparently his life was worth $20 to the police. Now I'm no expert, but I'm pretty certain that a person's life is worth more than $20. It's not a lot of money. There are people in America and in the UK who spend more than that per day on McDonald's food, and yet this was enough to end a man's life, to kneel on his neck until he was dying. And thankfully they have upped this charge that they're putting forward from third-degree murder, which I didn't even know was a thing. I thought it was manslaughter second first. In my eyes, this is clearly first. This was a calculated move. Here in the UK, the police have been taught for the last 25 years the dangers of leaving someone handcuffed face down. That's just handcuffed behind their backs, face down. That's not with no pressure on them. And that can be enough to cause serious damage and kill someone. But this bastard, this utter bastard, knelt on this man's neck for nearly 9 minutes. And yes, it pisses me off. I am not a fan of the police at the best of times. There's only ever been one police officer that I've ever actually trusted. The rest of them have always caused issues. At my job, which I'm not going to go into, sometimes I have to get the police involved. If there is antisocial behaviour, I have to call the police. Late last year, I had to physically remove someone from an area in my work, a member of the public, because they were making death threats against other customers. Yes, I work in a retail environment, but they were there making death threats, saying they were going to kill everybody in that area. And I'm a big dude. I'm 6'2", I'm a former professional wrestler, I did martial arts training when I was a kid, I was very nearly a black belt in karate. I know how to handle myself, I know how to restrain someone safely in a way that will keep myself and others and the person I'm restraining safe. And that's coming from someone who has officially no real training on this subject. Yet I managed it. I kept a man restrained for 27 minutes while I waited for the police to come after they were called as an emergency call with someone making threats to kill. I held them in a position, and every 60 seconds I had another staff member time it out and say, every minute, let me know. And I switched positions so I was not putting constant pressure on any one part of this person's body. I'd either switch the arm I was restraining them with, I would move my body weight across theirs so that no one part of their body had any sort of pressure on it for longer than 60 seconds. And that comes from someone with no official training. That is common sense. The human body cannot survive when blood flow and oxygen is stopped to certain areas, and the very nature of restraining somebody is you have to make sure that they cannot move those areas. So it's natural logic not to hold those areas continuously for any kind of length of time. And I'm just talking about somebody's arms and somebody's legs to stop them from lashing out, throwing punches, trying to stab me with things. This man was on the ground, he was face down, he was handcuffed. He wasn't a threat. And in my situation, after 27 minutes of waiting for the police to finally show up and arrest this guy, and I gave them my version of events, you know what they did? They said, oh, leave the part where he was threatening to kill people out. Don't report that bit. We'll just report him as drunk and disorderly. He made a threat against my life, he made a threat against my family, he made a threat against every customer I was responsible for and all of the staff I was responsible for, because I'm a manager in that business. And the police told me to falsify the report. And this is the UK, where it's not unheard of for these kind of police murders to happen, but it is a lot rarer than it is over in the States. And if this is happening here in the UK, where they're telling a white man to falsify a police report against a white man, then what the hell is happening with these minority groups that are being marginalised? There's been one police officer I trusted in the 31 years I've been on this planet, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. And to all these people who are saying, oh, all lives matter. Yes, you're right, all lives do matter. However, your life isn't being ended because of the colour of your skin. That is one thing that I will never have to worry about. I can go out into the street and I don't ever have to worry that I am going to be attacked verbally or physically by other people because of the colour of my skin. I don't have to worry about that. And until 10, 15 years ago, it never crossed my mind that that could be something that would happen. Because I lived in quite, a remote white area. There were no people of colour where I lived, so I never experienced it. And then I went to university and I was surrounded by people from all over the country and all over the world, and all of a sudden, all of these things became real. They weren't just things I'd seen in documentaries about events that happened decades ago. It was things I was seeing every day on the street, because I'd moved from a very rural area to a city that had a lot more people in it, from a lot more backgrounds. I have such an advantage living in the Western world as a white man. I really do. And it's up to people like me not to stand by and let this shit happen. Because a lot of the time, people of colour, ethnic minorities, whatever you want to call them, if they try and stand up for themselves physically, they get murdered by the people who are supposed to be here to protect them. I won't be murdered because I'm a white man being aggressive on the street. I might be arrested, and I'm cool with that, but I won't be murdered. I can't say the same thing about a black man or an Asian man, and I'd love to say that this is just a made-up thing that the media is pushing out of all proportion, but it's not, because less than a month ago, armed white civilians stormed into a federal building in America demanding that lockdown measures be taken away. And they were openly armed. They had rifles, they had shotguns, they had pistols. They were screaming in police officers' faces, and nothing happened. The police stood there. And now there's videos of peaceful protesters. People sat down in the street with their hands in the air, holding signs, being pepper sprayed in the face. And the only difference is that they're not white men. They are black men and women. They are Mexican men and women. They are Asian men and... They're not white, is the point I'm making. That is their only crime. And it is so fucked that that's even a thing. And the UK is not innocent in this. The amount of times I see posts on social media going, oh, they're from over there, they're from Eastern Europe, kick them out, illegal immigrants. They are literally people from over there. Who gives a shit? And the whole argument that they've got over here of, they're taking my jobs. Well, you know what? They're not, because loads of Eastern European people couldn't come into the UK because of the coronavirus issues. Yes, I said coronavirus. Fucking YouTube algorithm. Which meant that all of the seasonal fruit pickers that farmers needed to come in, that they brought in massive numbers from Eastern Europe every year to pick fruit and pick vegetables, weren't here. So they put the word out and said, British people, you're all furloughed. We need people to do this. We're willing to pay you good money to do it. Come down, we will sign you on, you will be part of our workforce, and it's a couple of weeks of work, and we'll pay you, you know, £15 an hour to do it. And all of these people who were like, oh, they're over here taking our jobs, all of a fucking sudden were silent. And they stayed at home. It's got fucking nothing to do with them coming in from somewhere else and taking your job, because I'm highly doubtful that these fucking racist idiots have fucking medical degrees and shit. It's got fuck all to do with them coming here taking your jobs. It's got everything to fucking do with the fact that they're not white. And that scares you because you've got your little bubble and your little white mates, and you make shit racist jokes, and you laugh, and you drink your shitty beer, and you're generally a massive fucking cunt. I did a video about mental health not long ago, and I quoted Sons of Anarchy, and it's so apt, the line I used. It is hard not to hate. It is hard not to hate people, things, institutions. It is so hard not to hate them. And these people who are like, oh, why is it just Black Lives Matter? Why is it not All Lives Matter? All lives do matter. But yours isn't being fucking ended by the police. Theirs is. You know what it sounds like? It sounds like this. A man is walking down the street and he comes across someone with a broken leg. And he says to you as you're passing by, quick, call an ambulance, this guy has broken his leg. And you turn to him and say, well, my legs matter as well. But yours aren't fucking broken, dickhead. Call the fucking ambulance. This year has proven that the entire system in the West is fucked. It's so fucking broken. You've got leaders in two of supposedly the most powerful countries in the world, America and England, who hide away from difficult conversation. Boris Johnson here in the UK hid in a fucking freezer. He walked into a freezer because he didn't want to answer questions about why his Brexit strategy wasn't working. And Donald Trump, he went and checked that his bunker was okay when the White House was nearly stormed by pissed off, angry people. And then he had his special forces blokes tear gas them so he could take a fucking photograph with a Bible. And yeah, this video is probably going to get smashed down by the algorithm here on YouTube, and I don't give a fuck. I've been swearing, I've used the word coronavirus, but that's just it. As soon as you start being the angry voice, all of a sudden everybody tries to shut it down. The reason I wasn't going to make this video is because I know I get emotional and I know I get pissed off. It's because I don't like people being treated differently for arbitrary bullshit reasons. I am no better than anybody else out there, unless those people are racist, ignorant bastards, in which case I am better than them. I'm going to leave a bunch of links down below where you can donate time or resources to help the people who are out there protesting and to help the people who are out there rioting, because you need to support them. And I know not everybody can donate their time, and I know not everybody can donate their money, because we're living in a situation where a lot of people don't have a lot to give right now. They are struggling themselves. But what I will do down below is I'm also going to link a YouTube video, and that YouTube video is filled with art, music, etc. made by people of colour. And there are tons of adverts on it, and I mean tons of adverts. Don't skip them, put it on in the background, put it on while you sleep, because all of the money that's made through ad revenue from that video is directly helping people. It's going directly into funds that are helping bail people out and pay medical expenses for people who've gotten hurt and put money back into this protest. It's putting money back into the hands of these people who are protesting so they can continue to protest and continue to make this movement happen, because it is so important that this makes a change. But right now I think it's time I end this video. So for now, I've been the Viking. As always, you have been awesome. Please look after yourselves, please look after each other, because I want to see you next time.
What don't they